Kemi stood there petrified as she read the text message that arrived her phone.
I know what you did. If you don't want anyone else to know, you will do exactly as I say.
Kemi stood there frozen, her eyes widening in terror as her heart suddenly began to beat like a drum. She looked around, terrified, wondering who could have sent the text, when suddenly another text dropped, informing her that she dropped her pen. Kemi looked to the ground and realized that she truly dropped her pen. She could not believe that someone out there knew her deepest, darkest secret. She was being watched, and this made her so terrified that her hands began to shake, knowing that someone in the school was watching her every move. She bent down slowly to pick up the pen, glancing around the busy schoolyard, hoping to see any sign that would give away who this blackmailer could be. Every student and teacher suddenly seemed like a suspect, and Kemi's breath began to shallow. It was as if time stood still in that moment, as everyone else walked past her, not recognizing the misery that she was now engulfed in. Her deepest, darkest secret was now in the hands of someone who was out to ruin her seemingly perfect life. Just as she stood there, lost in her own thoughts, her friend Tara hurried over and snapped her back to reality with a sharp tug.
I've been searching all over for you. You didn't stop by my house this morning like you used to. What happened?
Tara asked Kemi, who quickly made up an excuse on why she did not stop by hers on her way to school that morning. Being her best friend, Tara could sense something off about Kemi. She was on the edge and not as lively as she usually was.
Are you okay, Kemi?
Tara asked, but Kemi gave her a reassuring smile, saying that she was just thinking about the upcoming test.
Oh, that. Mr. Jide said we should focus on the last 6 topics that he taught us in class. I hear that 3 out of the 6 topics will come out in the exam.
And Kemi hissed on hearing this. That's a lot, Tara. How does he expect us to read all that? He should have narrowed the topics down a little, maybe 4 or even 5. Kemi said as they both walked to their classroom, grumbling about the upcoming test. When they arrived at class, a boy named Tayo walked up to Kemi and smiled without saying anything and walked away. This was so strange, as Kemi wondered why he did what he did. Is Tayo the blackmailer? She asked herself as she stared right at him, watching as he walked out of the classroom with his phone in his hand. Just as she sat there confused, trying to figure out what had just happened, a text message dropped on her phone with instructions on what she had to do.
Break into the principal's office and steal the answers to the math test.
Kemi could not believe her eyes. The blackmailer wanted her to steal from the principal's office, an act that could not only get her suspended but also ruin her chances of ever getting into any reputable school in the state. Kemi sat there, convinced that Tayo had something to do with it. She decided to confront him, knowing that something was definitely off with the way he was acting. She walked towards where he was standing, and before she could get to him, Mr. Ogunremi, their math teacher, walked into the classroom for his class. Mr. Ogunremi was the most feared teacher in the school. No one dared to misbehave once he was standing in front of the class, so Kemi quickly took her seat, not wanting to draw any form of attention to herself. Her mind, however, was far from the classroom. She could barely focus on Mr. Oguremi's voice as her thoughts kept drifting back and forth to the text messages that she had received and the possibility of her secret being leaked.
Why does he have to be our master's answers? Mr. Oguremi's cause of all things.
Kemi thought to herself, feeling a knot tighten in her stomach. She could not stand being caught and suspended. Neither could she stand her secret being leaked to the entire school. Kemi's heart raced as her hands began to tremble. She looked around the classroom, wondering if the blackmailer was gazing right at her. Kemi could feel the walls closing in on her as she began to feel choked up on her secret. As Mr. Ogunremi continued his maths class, Kemi raised up her hand to excuse herself.
Sir, may I use the restroom?
She said as she excused herself from the classroom and made her way to a quiet spot close to the school's library. All Kemi wanted was some peace and quiet, a time alone to enable her think. The corridors were mostly empty as she sat down on a bench and stared down at her phone.
What do I do? What if they really know? What if they tell everyone?
Kemi whispered to herself as she began to panic. Her mind wandered back to that one night, the secret that she thought that she